Hello, Fathers and Reapers, Aaron here, back with another video. If you have seen my previous video on Arlecchino, forget everything you know. Father has been reworked, I think 4 separate times now, to the point where she's basically a completely different character, so going through this video blind will probably help make you feel a bit less confused. But before we hop into the info, I just have to mention that if you do like my content, please think about taking a bite out of that red velvet Madeline's flavored subscribe button down below. Also note that chapters to the video are down below in the description for you to peruse the video at your leisure, as are the background bops used in the video. But with that done, let's head into the overview. Arlecchino is a normal attack Pyro main DPS unit that focuses on turning her inability to be healed into more damage for herself. Arlecchino has many unique features that pair with her normal and charge attacks. Since her normal attacks have significantly more mechanics attached to them, let's start with her charged attacks. Arlie's charge attack has her dash forward and swipe at enemies in an area around her. If the charge attack button is held continuously, Arlecchino enters an alternate sprint mode for up to 5 seconds. In this mode, she rapidly consumes stamina while sprinting at about the same speed that Yolan's skill has. Arlecchino's normal attacks have a bit going for them due to the damage increasing capabilities tied behind her Mask of Red Death state. To achieve the Mask of Red Death state, Arlecchino needs a Bond of Life worth 30% or more of her max HP. Once this is achieved, her normal charged and plunging attacks will all be infused with Pyro that will not be removed even if she is swapped off-field, making her the first unit since the launch of the game with this mechanic. Additionally, her normal attacks will deal additional damage based on the Bond of Life amount she has multiplied by her attack, giving her twice the amount of attack scaling on her normal attacks. When a normal attack hits an enemy while her infusion is active, she will reduce her Bond of Life amount by 7.5% of the current amount, and when a Bond of Life is consumed in this manner, her elemental skills cooldown will be reduced by 0.8 seconds. This grants her a crap ton of damage up front that will fall off the more she attacks, but as she continues to attack, she gains the benefit of getting her skills cooldown back, which allows her to easily set up her next rotation. But what does Arlecchino's skill do? Well, it's got a lot to it, as it has 3 phases. She first deals damage in an area in front of her, then she dashes toward one of the enemies she dealt damage to with this ability, and finally she applies a Blood Debt directive to them that deals damage once every 5 seconds up to a max of 2 times. If Arlie uses a charge attack, she will absorb nearby blood debts and convert them into a Bond of Life for herself worth 65% of her max HP. The maximum Bond of Life she can obtain this way is worth 145% of her max HP, though this cap resets every time she uses her skill. Arlie's burst deals damage in an AoE, it resets the cooldown of her skill, it absorbs all blood debts on enemies around her, and it heals her based on her current Bond of Life amount multiplied by her attack. This heal will end up clearing her Bond of Life amount while healing her for a good portion of her health. Arlecchino's Exploration passive is the first of its kind as it actually impacts her damage potential. While in combat, she gains a large 40% pyro damage bonus at the cost of not being healable by anything other than her burst. While the first is incredibly strong for her damage output, not being healable is detrimental toward her potential synergies with certain healers or certain characters that desire healers. Arlecchino's first Ascension passive allows her to gain a larger Bond of Life amount. When enemies with her blood debt on them are eliminated, she will gain a Bond of Life worth 130% of her max HP. She can also gain this much Bond of Life if she waits 5 seconds after applying the blood debt directives to enemies, as it will turn into an upgraded blood debt due state. The purpose of this passive is so she can consistently reach huge Bond of Life levels with ease to maximize her damage output. Arlecchino's Ascension 4 passive increases her resistances to all elements by 1% for every 100 attacks she has over 1000. This passive is mainly to make up for her inability to be healed, as it will make her about as tanky as a unit that builds full into defense. Now, I've mentioned the Bond of Life mechanic a few times, but what exactly does it do, and what even is it? Bond of Life is a rare mechanic in Genshin that grants a meter around the HP bar of an ally that takes and absorbs all healing directed at that ally. This means that while an ally has a Bond of Life, they cannot receive healing from any source. But after enough healing, the meter will disappear and the ally can start being healed once again. The amount of Bond of Life granted to an ally is always equal to a percentage of the ally's max HP. As an example, let's use Arlecchino, who will usually have around 20,000 HP. If she receives a Bond of Life equal to 10% of her max HP, the Bond of Life would equal 2,000 HP. This means that Arlecchino would need to receive healing worth 2,000 HP before she can be healed shield again. To get a bit more specific, if Arlecchino uses her skill, she can gain a Bond of Life worth 145% of her HP at the maximum per skill cast. So to clear this Bond of Life, she would need to receive healing worth 29,000 HP. Bond of Life also lasts 10 minutes, and it has a cap of 200% of the ally's max HP. So if we go back to our previous example, if Arlecchino receives a Bond of Life worth 200% of her max HP, she would need to either wait 10 full minutes for it to disappear, or she would need to be healed for 40,000 HP. However, Arlecchino pretty much ignores this mechanic. She cannot be healed by anything other than her burst, which guarantees a cleanse of the Bond of Life, and instead uses the mechanic to increase her own damage output. Now, with the little Bond of Life lesson over, let's move on to how to use Arlecchino. Arlie's talent priority is incredibly simple. Her normal and charge attacks will usually make up to about 85% of her damage output, so you should level this up and crown it first. The other two don't matter as much. You can level them for more damage, or you can completely ignore them. Either will do, but if you do level them, then they should be leveled at the same time. Arlecchino's kit might make it seem like her combos are going to be wonky, but that's anything but the case. If you have ever used the Raiden Shogun, you're going to start the rotation the same way. First, use your skill at the start of the rotation, then go through your team and swap back to Arlie. This is where it changes from Raiden's playstyle. After you swap back into her, you want to use her charge attack to gain the Bond of Life from her Blood Debt Due and start normal attacking until her skill is off cooldown. At that point, use her skill and then you can use her elemental burst for the heal if you need it, though this is optional because it can be a DPS loss. After that, repeat the combo over and over until victorious. For her normal attack combo, you can do basically whatever. Just like with Alhaitham's combos, most of Arlecchino's combos deal similar damage to each other anyway, so just do what feels appropriate given the current situation. However, do note that the final two hits of her normal attack string have a lower DPS than her first due to their longer animation windows and small base damage increase. So 3 or 4 or even sometimes 5 normal attacks and a dash will generally be recommended for dealing the most damage possible, though again, this matters very little. With Arlecchino's base kit done, let's move on to the upgrades we have for her in her Constellations. Arlecchino C1 increases her Bond of Life scaling by an additional 100%, and when she performs normal and charged attacks, her interruption resistance is increased by 100%. The main benefit of this constellation is the additional Bond of Life scaling that her normal attacks gain. This ends up increasing her total damage output by around 22% in all situations, which is huge. The other benefit this constellation grants is, in all honesty, about as useful as flavor text. It increases her interruption resistance by 100%, but only while performing normal and charged attacks. However, there are dead zones in between some of the attacks in her normal attack chain, which allow her to still be interrupted out of them without a shield or dodging. So relying on shields and dodging will still be important for her survivability. Despite this, her C1 is one of Arlecchino's best constellations, and if you do like her, I would recommend this over any other vertical investment option. Arlecchino C2 makes Blood Debt directives turn immediately into Blood Debt Due, allowing her to instantly charge attack for her max value Bond of Life. Additionally, after absorbing Blood Debt Due, Arlecchino will explode for the sake of it, dealing massive damage in an AoE in front of her. This effect can only occur once every 10 seconds, which would occur once per rotation. However, since she can now get the max benefit of her Bond of Life immediately, she can activate this twice per rotation by waiting until after you go through her team to use her first skill. When using this switch up, the damage increase this constellation grants is huge, but it really pops off in vape teams since it counts as another hit that can be vaporized. On top of that, instantly placing a Blood Debt Due on the enemy enables Arlecchino to reliably use Shimenawa's Reminiscence. This is a major factor because her signature set's domain kinda sucks booty cheeks. The only downside to this constellation is that it now requires using her burst to absorb her blood debts in order to reset her skill every rotation. Despite this hiccup, this constellation is fantastic for Arlecchino and is her second best available. Her third is pretty good too, as it increases the level of her normal attacks, which increase their base scaling and her Bond of Life scaling. This is a strong raw damage increase for her all around, as it will increase her damage by around 16.5% on average. Arlecchino C4 is a very bizarre constellation. When she absorbs a blood debt, she reduces the cooldown of her burst by 2 seconds, and she grants herself 15 energy. In all honesty, this does very little for her. It lets her use Shimenawa's Reminiscence with even more ease, and it allows her to run at enemies easier in the Abyss using only a shielder, but otherwise this does nothing for her, making it one of the worst 5-star constellations in the game. Her fifth barely gets better. Increasing her burst's level by 3 merely increases the damage it deals, but when it's not a significant portion of her damage, a constellation that buffs it it ain't gonna do much. I would have given her C5 a 0 out of 5, but it technically does increase her damage, so I can't reasonably do so. It's still bad though, don't get me wrong, but it's not like I can point and laugh at it like I can with her C4. Her C6 is freaking crazy though, as it allows her burst to scale off of her Bond of Life like her normal attacks do. Additionally, both her burst and normal attacks gain 10% extra crit rate and 70% extra crit damage for 20 seconds after using her skill. This is such an absolutely ridiculous amount of stats that it puts her above and beyond what any other C6 main DPS unit is capable of, making it one of the best constellations in the game. All around, her constellations are a mixed bag. They're either some of the best constellations you could ask for on a 5-star main DPS, or they do next to nothing. However, she does have some of the best initial constellations that a main DPS can have, and these constellations also offer her some personal conveniences. These initial damage increases are massive, and will usually lead to her dealing about 50% more damage from just C0 to C2. Some units need their 6th constellations to reach this sort of damage increase, while Arlecchino gets it in only 2. However, her constellations are not needed for her to deal massive damage. Can I recommend them? Sure. If you want to invest in Arlecchino, go ahead, but at this point, it is extreme overkill since she has some of the highest damage in the game, even at C0. But those are just her optional upgrades. We still have to gear her up, so let's move on to see what her best artifact options are. Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy is one of the 2 newest sets coming in the Genshin 4.6 patch. This set provides 18% attack to the user and then can increase the user's damage percent by 18% for 6 seconds, stacking up to 3 times at 54% damage bonus. The condition of this set is very rare, as the only ways to gain a Bond of Life is through Arlecchino, her madams in the overworld, and the 2 Bond of Life weapons available. So, while it is good on her, it will not be super versatile. 2 other options Father has are Gladiator's Finale and Gilded Dreams. Generally, Gladiator's Finale is the better set of the 2, as it is unconditional, it works in every comp, and it doesn't have odd timing issues that can lower your damage. However, Gilded Dreams is a decent substitute if you don't have a good 4-piece Gladiator set available, but both of these fall behind her signature by about 10% or more. This damage difference equates to about 4 substats worth of crit, so if you do have these sets at the ready with good substats, then I would recommend you keep them. But Arlecchino makes up a massive portion of her team's overall DPS, so if you don't have god tier Glad or Gilded pieces, then maybe the Fragment domain will treat you better. Arlecchino is a rather simple main DPS, so her main stats are similar to every other main DPS's main stats. First, there's the forced HP on the flower and attack on the feather. For the rest of the main stats that are left up to RNG, you want to look for attack percent on the sands, pyro damage on the goblet, and crit on the circlet. However, Arlecchino's normal attacks have a massive amount of attack scaling, which allows her to work insanely well with attack percent. She benefits so much from it that you can run attack percent on the goblet over a pyro damage one, since there are some situations where it can perform even better than pyro damage. As a rule of thumb, a pyro damage goblet will be better than attack percent by about 3 crit substats. For her substats, crit is above all others, as she has little need for energy due to her best teams offering her a lot of it, her own personal massive energy generation, and her unreliance on her burst in most team comps. After that, look for attack percent, aiming for 2000 or more attack. Then elemental mastery if you want to use her in reaction focused teams. But with artifacts done, let's move on to weapons, starting off with her signature. Crimson Moon Semblance offers her more Bond of Life for her base damage to scale with, a huge base attack stat, crit rate, and even a large percent damage bonus. It offers her everything she could ask for and proves to be her best weapon in all situations. Then there's the Staff of Homa, Staff of Scarlet Sands, and Primordial Jadewing Spear, which are all about the same in terms of usability. Generally speaking, Staff of Homa is the much more consistent option, which is why it's slightly higher. Scarlet Sands can beat it out if she constantly uses her burst for the skill cooldown reset and if she builds into a good amount of elemental mastery. Then there's Jade, which has better refinements and can potentially lead to a higher DPS than both of them, but it requires stacking its passive. It's a give or take situation, but generally, there's going to be little difference between the 3 for her. Up next, we have the other mentionable 5-star options and Battle Pass weapons, those of which being Calamity Queller, Deathmatch, Skyward Spine, and Battle of the Fjords, each with their own specific places where they excel. Calamity Queller is generally her best of these due to the massive attack it offers, making it the overall most versatile of the 4. Skyward Spine is very strong for consistency's sake due to the vast array of stats it offers her that she can make use of. Deathmatch is super consistent on her too, but it usually peaks when paired with Bennett due to its large crit rate. And Battle of the Fjords peaks hard with Vape teams, as it can perform about just as well as Jade, Scarlet, and Homa. And finally we have Vortex Vanquisher, Black Cliff Pole, and White tassel, which are all about the same in terms of quality for her with their own specific benefits. Vortex is great with shields, but not good enough to warrant using it over others. Blackcliff pops off in AoE situations, but outside of those, it's not that great, and White Tassel is super free-to-play friendly with few downsides other than low base stats. Other weapons to mention are Dragon's Bane, Missive Wind Spear, and Katane Cross Spear, which all perform very well in vape teams and which are all free-to-play friendly. Dragon's Bane is her best of these three due to the huge percent damage it offers, making it good even in overload and mono pyro teams. Missive is similar, but instead of percent damage, it offers more attack, which is still good, but not as good as the massive percent damage bonus that Dragon's Bane provides. And Katane Cross Spear is a great option to swap to if you find you're looking to burst consistently, but you're having trouble with your current setup. In terms of weapon options, I would recommend everyone start out with the White Tassel as a base. Since Vortex and Blackcliff are so close to this one in terms of damage, I can't purposefully recommend upgrading to them unless you have them set and ready to go. The weapons in the next tier I can recommend are Deathmatch and Skyward Spine, since the others include a limited time weapon and one weapon limited to vape teams. However, if you do have Homa, Scarlet, or Jade, then use either. All are incredible on her and are only slightly behind her signature in terms of damage output, so I can't recommend getting Crimson Moon unless you're looking to refine it. With gearing her up out of the way, let's move on to who to pair her with, starting with her synergies. Bennett is the one character that Arlecchino really wants at the current moment. Bennett offers such large and versatile buffs to Arlecchino that no other character can grant Arlecchino the same damage potential that he can. Almost double the attack percent from Pyro Resonance, pyro damage bonus from his C6, and either Elemental Mastery with Instructors, or more attack percent from Noblesse. This unit is insane and will be Arlecchino's best buffing support. He's so good at buffing her that he should be used in almost every comp she's in, even if there's already a shielder on the team. Zhongli is another unit that Arlecchino heavily desires due to the massive dumpy of a shield that he provides. This thing is thick, and it keeps getting thicker as the battle goes on, which she massively benefits from due to her inability to receive healing. Since he is a shielder, he allows Arlecchino to not use her burst in order to retain her Bond of Life amount for the next rotation, which turns out to be a rather significant damage increase. Using a shield with Arlecchino is so important because it enables her to commit to her best combos while also not having to worry about getting knocked around or dodging frequently, which would end up turning into a team DPS loss. While replacing a more damage-heavy unit with Zhongli would end up being a DPS loss on paper, the sheer consistency that Zhongli and other shielders provide Arlecchino would end up leading to a higher DPS in practice. But the resistance shred he offers is what really puts him above all other shielders, since she can get no other form of resistance shredding without an Animo unit. And then there's Yanfei and Thoma, the final and undervalued units that work insanely well with Arlecchino. Yanfei, when at C4 and when built like a tank, is Bennett and Zhongli combined, since she can offer Arlecchino 80% attack due to Pyro Resonance, Noblesse Oblige, and Thrilling Tales of the Dragon Slayer. On top of that, she can provide an enormous shield for Arlecchino to use. Thoma is a similar choice at C6, but he has some pros and cons compared to Yanfei. He might be much more consistent, easier to use in team rotations, have lower energy costs on average, and he might offer a good damage percent buff, but he applies more pyro to ruin reactions, and his shield needs time to build up. Generally speaking, a C4 Yanfei and a C6 Thoma will be on par with one another while performing slightly worse than Zhongli would in those same spots. However, they come with the benefit of being pyro, which means they can be used as the shielding option in Chevre's signature overload teams, while Zhongli can't. On top of that, Yanfei is the only unit in the game right now that has the potential to grant a massive shield to the on-field unit while healing the entire team with Prototype Amber, all while off-field. This makes her the only character that lets Arlecchino consistently and safely use Fiorina to any degree. With these notes in mind, let's move on to team compositions. One of Arlecchino's best teams are obviously vape comps. Most want both Bennett and Zhongli for the massive buffing and safety that they both provide. However, if you are more skilled at dodging, then you can swap out Zhongli for a more offensive character like Kazuha, Sucrose, or Jingshou. But for most people, this will be way too risky for such a minimal damage increase. Speaking of risky, let's move on to the next comp she can be used in, Chevy Overload, which can have issues. Chevy is best used to support 3 DPS or for hypercarry purposes, but Arlecchino cannot be healed, which means these teams need another support. Additionally, Chevre's C6 currently cannot heal Arlecchino, so she can't grant her the extra 60% damage bonus that she deserves. Despite these two things, Chevre's other forms of damage buffing utility will make up for all of these downsides and will enable Arlecchino to deal massive damage in almost any situation. Mono Pyro is next, which focuses on massively buffing Xiangling and Arlecchino Arlecchino's damage output. However, these teams tend to grant Arlecchino an on-field window that is significantly shorter than other comps if using Kazuha. Zhongli is again recommended for more on-field time and ease of use at the cost of less damage. However, Xiangling can be swapped out for Kazuha if you'd like more of a hypercarry variant of these teams. She could also work decently in Burgeon teams, but she absolutely requires Zhongli as her defensive support. This is because he's the only unit in the game who can grant a shield that will withstand all of the damage the team is taking while also buffing every unit. If he is not used, this team runs a major risk of falling apart instantly. Ending off our team section, we have the comp where we force Fiorina because I know a lot of people want to do that. At the current moment, this comp requires these very specific units to function. Fiorina is here for the Hydro application and damage percent, Bennett is needed for the massive attack buff for Arlecchino, and Yanfei is here for her massive shield once at C4 along with the Prototype Amber to heal the team in order for Fiorina to stack her buff. However, Prototype Amber's HP regeneration does count as healing for interaction's sake, so it would clear any Bond of Life mechanics and it cannot heal Arlecchino, just Bennett, Fiorina, and Yanfei. This enables Fiorina to consistently gain 108 stacks of fanfare, translating to 27% team-wide damage bonus. However, this comp is not better than the Yelan variant with Zhongli, which is also much safer. The only time this comp can surpass the Yelan variant is when Fiorina is at C2. Until then, I don't recommend using this comp over that one. I also want to note that this comp does enable Arlecchino to use Marais Chaussee using a different team rotation, but the amount of additional swaps will lower the uptime of buffs and increase the team rotation by about 5 seconds, leading to a lower DPS for the team overall. But with that done, let's finish off with Arlecchino's rating. Arlecchino has the current highest personal damage potential in the game. She's reaching extremely high damage numbers and matches the best of the best in both AoE situations and against single target content, earning her a 5 out of 5. Arlecchino's application is relatively good. It's the average from what you'd expect from any unit in the game, but considering Pyro application matters less than most others, and considering that she only really has application while on field, I will have to give her a 2 out of 5 here. Arlecchino has no offensive utility, though instead of turning on about that, let's skitter on to her battery potential. For battery potential, Arlecchino has quite a ton. She can potentially generate 10 Pyro particles per rotation. This is a ludicrous amount of energy for the team and for herself, earning her a 5 out of 5. While Arlecchino may have the inability to be healed, she does have the benefit of being the tankiest main DPS in the entire game due to the increased all-type resistance buff she has. This pairs insanely well with shields since she will usually raise the effective strength of the shield she's using. Though while she might not work with healers, in all other comps, she will amplify all other forms of defensive utility applied to her, which I think earns her a 0.5 out of 5. In terms of flexibility and versatility, Arlecchino can only be used as an on-field DPS. She can't drive reactions, she offers no utility, she's pure damage. However, all she really requires to get going is a shield or some skill at dodging and some buffs from other units, which is pretty easy to fulfill. The composition barely matters too, which is, in my opinion, the best part. So I think she earns a solid 2.5 out of 5 for flexibility and versatility. Overall, Arlecchino is one of the best DPS units in the game. Her damage output is insane, and she needs just a few things to unlock that damage potential. This allows her to work in almost every single Pyro team comp imaginable while still outputting some of the highest damage in the game. This is honestly kind of a concerning amount of power creep, as she can match all other Pyro DPS units in the same comps they want to be used in. While my score rating might only put her at a 2.5 average rating, I think she deserves a better score of 3 out of 5 due to the sheer damage she can output and the amount of comps she can be used in. Is she the most broken main DPS unit in the game? No, that still goes to Neuvillette, but she will do any job you want her to do. She just requires a bit to get going. But that's all I have to say on Arlecchino. Now I want to hear your thoughts. What do you all think of her? Do you plan to pull her? Do you think she has even more potential than I do? Do you think she's worse? What comps do you plan to use with her? Tell me all your thoughts in the comments down below. But with that, I will get out of your hair. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye bye!